Did you know that in some parts of the world, marriage can function as a real financial negotiation? In certain countries, a bride's dowry can cost less than a dinner at a fancy restaurant. In some situations, amounts starting at $35 are enough to seal agreements, unite families, and change people's destinies. But how does this work? Who decides these values? And most importantly, how does this practice affect the women involved? In this video, we will reveal the secrets of this tradition and showcase 8 countries where marriage has a cost that will surprise you. Stay until the end, because what you will discover may change the way you view these cultures. Did you know that in some regions of Vietnam, marriage is not just a matter of love, but also of survival and hope for a better future? In rural areas marked by poverty, many families see marriage as an opportunity to overcome financial difficulties. This has led to practices ranging from seeking foreign partners to traditional festivals focused on promoting meetings for marriage. In poorer regions, it is common for young women to be encouraged and sometimes pressured to marry men from other countries, such as South Korea, Taiwan, and even Western nations. The idea is simple: escape poverty and find financial stability. These marriages can be arranged through specialized agencies or start through online platforms. For many women, these unions represent not only a chance to improve their own lives, but also to help their families by ensuring support and even investments in their children's education. However, these stories do not always have happy endings. Cultural differences, language barriers, and difficulties in adapting can make the dream of a better life more complicated than it seemed. Still, many young women accept the risk, as the greater goal is to support their loved ones and escape a difficult reality. Additionally, Vietnam also maintains unique traditions related to marriage. One example is the Phu Tho Festival, a cultural event where young people have the chance to meet potential partners in a festive atmosphere. During the festival, dances, music, and traditional rituals create the ideal environment for families to connect and strengthen bonds. The Phu Tho Festival reflects well the value that community has in Vietnamese culture. Unlike many Western countries, where marital choices tend to be individual, in Vietnam the family plays an active role in the decision, believing that marriage unites not only two people, but also two families. Despite the changes brought by modernization, events like this continue to be an important part of social life in the country. In Bulgaria, there is still a tradition that seems to come from another time but persists in some communities: the bride market. This event, common among the Roma ethnic group of the Calderash, brings families together to negotiate marriages for their daughters. It takes place several times a year, usually in villages or small towns, and attracts not only participants, but also curious onlookers, journalists, and tourists intrigued by this custom. At the market, young women, often dressed in eye-catching clothing, are presented to potential suitors while their families negotiate the marriage terms. These values can depend on factors such as age, appearance, and even the girl's skills. One of the most valued aspects is virginity, seen as a symbol of respect and purity, which can raise the value of the negotiation. Although this tradition is significant for the community, it often causes discomfort and strangeness for outsiders. Over time, however, modernity has impacted these practices. Access to the internet and social media is allowing more and more young Roma to come into contact with other ways of life. Many of them begin to question arranged marriages and seek a different future away from these traditions. Some even dream of relationships based on personal choice and freedom, often looking for partners outside their community or even outside the country. Latvia has been attracting attention due to a phenomenon that is changing the course of many women's lives in the country. With more women than men in the population and a challenging economy, many of them have sought new opportunities abroad, where they believe they have better chances of achieving a more stable life. This movement has boosted the number of marriages with foreigners, creating an interesting and nuanced social scenario. The main motivation for these women's emigration is the search for better living conditions and financial security. In a country with few professional growth opportunities, especially in rural areas, leaving Latvia often seems like the only alternative. Many women are building their stories in countries like those in the European Union or the United States, where they see the chance for a more comfortable and stable life. International marriages have become increasingly common. Men from other countries, impressed with the beauty and intelligence of Latvian women, see them as committed and dedicated partners. For these women, marrying foreigners is often a way to secure financial stability and a safer future for themselves and their families. The economic situation in Latvia is also an important factor in this scenario. Although it is part of Europe, the country faces low wages and significant emigration of men in search of work abroad. This increases the burden on women, who often have to assume the role of both providers and caregivers at the same time. However, life outside inside Latvia is not easy. Women who move face challenges such as cultural differences, language barriers, and homesickness. For many, international marriage goes beyond an economic solution. It is an attempt to seek hope for a different and more promising future. Have you ever thought of a market where, instead of fruits or clothes, what is on display are the profiles of single people? That's exactly what happens at the so-called love market in China, held at People's Park in Shanghai. Parents and grandparents gather weekly, turning the place into a real matrimonial negotiation hub, all in an attempt to find the ideal match for their children and grandchildren. This market is not just a curious event, but also a reflection of the immense social pressure many Chinese face to marry and start a family. In Chinese culture, family stability carries significant weight, and being single after a certain age can be a source of concern for both the young individuals and their parents. That's where the love market comes into play. Here, the elders take on the role of matchmakers, seeking to pair up profiles that meet cultural and social expectations. The ads posted by parents are like resumes, featuring details such as age, height, salary, academic background, and even assets like property or cars. These traits end up functioning as market values in conversations between parents, who don't hesitate to negotiate potential dates. The curious thing is that, in many cases, the children aren't even aware that their parents are participating in this, which can be seen both as an act of care and as an unwanted intrusion. This contrast of opinions reflects a current dilemma in China: how to balance ancient traditions with the desire for individuality in a rapidly changing world. There's also additional pressure on single women over the age of 27, who are given the nickname Shang Nu, or leftover women. Single men over 30 also face judgment, often being seen as unstable. Furthermore, the legacy of the one-child policy created a gender imbalance, which intensifies the anxiety many families feel about securing marriages. Despite this, not everyone views the love market in the same way. Some couples have actually formed through these negotiations, while for others, the parents' attempt becomes just a source of funny or embarrassing stories. At its core, the love market is not only about finding partners, it is also a space where parents share concerns and form a kind of community. It's a portrait of how tradition and modernity coexist, not always in harmony, in a society in constant transformation. Have you ever imagined what it would be like to have your love life decided by your family? In India, this is more common than it seems. Arranged marriages are part of an ancient tradition, where often love comes after the wedding, not before. For many families, finding the ideal partner is almost a ritual that involves compatibility between the couple, social status, money, and family values. An interesting detail is that, in some regions, this search is taken to another level with so-called matrimonial fairs. At these fairs, families gather with one single goal: to find the perfect match. Detailed profiles of children are presented, including age, education, profession, and even horoscopes, which carry great weight in Indian culture. But it's not just the family that decides. In some cases, the bride can choose her partner in a tradition called Swayamvara, where several suitors present themselves and she makes the choice. On the other hand, in poorer regions, there are still concerning cases of brides being bought for very low amounts, like $35, turning marriage into a kind of economic transaction. While some young women accept the traditions, others turn to modern methods like apps and social media to carve out their own paths and find love on their own. Have you ever heard of a place where marriage is treated like a real negotiation? In Mauritania, in some regions, this is a reality in the so-called wife markets. These markets are not metaphors, but real places where families gather to discuss the details of marriages, such as dowries and the conditions of the union. There, marriage is seen not only as the union of two people, but also as a social and financial commitment between families. These markets usually take place in public spaces, such as squares or villages, and serve as a meeting point for the parents and relatives of the bride and groom. They negotiate values and terms, with the dowry being a central part of the conversation. This dowry can include money, cattle, jewelry, or other goods, and serves both as a practical guarantee and as a symbol that the groom will be able to take care of his wife and respect her family. The process is largely controlled by the parents, who discuss all the details, from the dowry amount to the expectations that the couple must meet after marriage. The presence of the couple varies. In some cases, they attend as listeners. In others, they are absent and only informed of the decisions. There is also a strong element of hierarchy in these markets. Families with more economic power or social status are able to negotiate better terms, while families with less influence often have to accept imposed conditions. For women, this can mean following a path already decided, with little to no no possibility of choice. Although this practice is deeply linked to local culture, it raises many questions. For some, wife markets are a way to preserve social stability and strengthen family ties. For others, they are a tradition that limits individual freedom, especially for women. In times when personal choices are becoming more important, these markets show the challenge of balancing ancient traditions with the values of a modern world. In South Korea, love and marriage are not limited to personal choices but reflect cultural and social changes in a country in constant transformation. Although many aspects of modern life have changed, arranged marriages are still part of the reality for some families. These arrangements are not made casually. On the contrary, they are carefully organized by mayanuri, known as Korean matchmakers. They not only connect potential couples, but also discuss details such as dowries, financial conditions, and compatibility between the families, considering factors like education, income, and social position. Despite these traditions, the country faces challenges. South Korea has one of the lowest birth rates in the world, and many women have delayed or chosen not to follow the traditional marriage model. This change is especially felt in rural areas, where it is increasingly difficult to find Korean partners willing to live in the countryside. As a result, many men in these regions have sought brides from other countries, such as Vietnam and China, where international marriages have become common. This search goes beyond romance. It is an attempt to preserve rural life and ensure the continuity of their families. When we think of Egypt, it's common to remember the pyramids and its rich history. However, the country also faces a controversial practice that involves culture, economy, and personal relationships, so-called temporary marriages. These arrangements arise in a context of financial difficulties that affect a significant portion of the population. For some families, allowing their daughters to marry foreigners for a limited period becomes a way to ease the economic situation. Many men from other countries seek these unions, attracted by the reputation of Egyptian women, valued for qualities such as beauty, dedication, and a strong family bond, which convey a sense of security and tradition. These marriages are usually contracted as agreements, with conditions defined between the parties. Although permitted under certain interpretations of Islamic law, they raise debates about ethics and social impacts. For foreigners, these arrangements offer a relationship without long-term commitment. For the families, they represent immediate financial relief. However, the burden of these decisions often falls on the women, who face consequences such as social stigma and lack of support after the relationship ends. These marriages have clear start and end dates. When the foreigner returns to their country, the women are often left without support, as these agreements don't guarantee the same rights as a conventional marriage. And that's where the video ends. Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like. Your support means a lot to us. Click on the video that's appearing on your screen now. I'm sure you'll enjoy the content. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.